set your camera like this for a talking head video. Okay, take your camera and let's set it up from 0 for a talking head video like this one. I will show you using this Sony ZV E10 with Sigma 16mm f1.4 because it's so popular, but you can do the same thing on any camera. Doesn't matter if it's a Canon or Nikon or Panasonic, it doesn't matter. All the settings are the same. You just need to find those settings in your camera menu exactly where they are, but they are doing the same thing, okay? You can do the same thing on any digital camera. And I will keep things as simple as possible without any technical terms or something like this, okay? So first thing, of course, attach your lens and turn your camera on. Next, we need to put the camera into video mode, and for this, press this button until you will see a video camera. And now you are in video mode. The next thing to do is to set the exposure to manual. This is important because we want our image to be stable. If it's not on manual mode, maybe when you move your hand and cover the light a little bit, the camera will start to change some settings and that will look bad. So we want to do this manually. It's easy, don't worry. For this, press this FN button, go on the bottom right corner, on shoot mode, press enter, and here choose manual exposure and click OK. And now your camera is in video mode and manual mode. The next thing to do is to choose our frame rate. For this, go to menu, in menu number 2, submenu number 1, and go down to record setting. Click OK, and here we have the frame rates. Right now I have 25p 100 megabits per second and 25p 60 megabits per second. I will always choose the best quality. This is 100 megabits per second. But before choosing the frame rate, we need to choose between PAL or NTSC. Let me explain. If you live in US as an example, you need to use your camera on NTSC mode. If you live in some countries in Europe, you need to use your camera on PAL mode. Long story short, if you live in US and you use NTSC mode, you have to choose between 24 or 30 FPS, and if you use PAL mode, you will have only 25 FPS. Don't worry too much about it. I will put a link in the description that goes to a list and you can see there all the countries and see what mode to use in your country. In some countries you will see C-cam. This camera and many other cameras doesn't have C-cam, so use PAL. This is about the electricity in your country, and if you use the wrong mode, you will have flicker. Some lights might flicker, and that's disturbing. Of course, if you are in US and you want to use 25 FPS, just set your camera to PAL mode, set your shot and see if you don't have flicker. It's okay, use it like this. If you are in Europe and you want to use 30 FPS, set your camera on NTSC, set your shot and see if you don't have flicker and everything looks good. You can use it like that, it's not a problem. To choose between NTSC or PAL, go into menu, menu number 5, submenu number 2, and you have here NTSC PAL selector. Click on it and now it will ask me change to NTSC. Right now I'm on PAL. You can press enter and the camera will do something like this. And now I'm in NTSC mode. And if I will go again in the menu to change the frame rate, I will see right now 30p or 24p. But right now I will use my camera in PAL mode. So I will use 25 FPS. And for the resolution, just keep it 4K. If you have a full HD camera, that's totally fine. With this camera, I will keep the resolution at 4K. Good, and now we have our camera in video mode. In manual mode, we choose between PAL or NTSC and set up our frame rate. Next thing to do is to set our shutter speed. Before setting this, I recommend you to activate all that information on your camera screen to see what's happening, to see everything you need to see. So for this, just on this wheel, press up where you can see this display. Press up until you will see all the information on the screen like this. Perfect. Right now, let's set the shutter speed. If you turn this wheel, you will see some numbers going up and down. This is your shutter speed, and this should be double than your frame rate. So right now I have my camera set to 25 FPS, so this should be at 50. So I will turn this wheel until I will go to 50 and press OK. If you use 30 FPS, you will set this to 60. But if you use 24, we don't have 48, so we go to the closest one, 50. 48 is close to 50, so if you don't have the exact number, go to the closest one, 50. So my camera right now it's on 25 FPS and shutter speed is at 1/50 or 50. The next thing to set is the aperture. This might be different from a lens to another. This is Sigma 16mm f1.4. That f number represents the aperture. This is a kit lens. This is 18 to 135mm f3.5 5.6. That means when you are at 18mm, the f can go at 3.5, and if you zoom to 135mm, the f can be 5.6. It can't go lower than 5.6, and at 18mm, it can't go lower than 3.5. With this lens, you can go to 1.4. As simple as possible. When this number is low, like 1.4, you will have a brighter image and the blur behind the subject will be more pronounced, okay? The bokeh will be pronounced. When this is higher, like 3.5 or 5.6, the image will be darker and that blur will disappear. Now, this is why I recommend all the time this Sigma 16mm f1.4 for talking heads, because you don't need a lot of light and you will have a nice blur in the background, and it's affordable, it's pretty cheap, it's a pretty cheap lens and it's wide enough. This is why I recommend this for talking heads. But if you have the kit lens, 16 to 55mm f3.5 5.6, try to keep the lens wide open and to have the aperture at 3.5. This is as low as that lens can go. So it's okay, use it at 3.5. The majority of creators prefer to use this as low as possible, like on this lens at 1.4, because it will look nice, you know, that blur in the background is nice. But it's really about the budget and what lens are you using. And to change this, you just need to turn this wheel on top of the camera, turn it to the left to go to 1.4 or higher if you want that. Maybe sometimes you don't want to have that blur and maybe you want to increase this number and add more light. But for the talking head, I'm sure if you have this lens, you will want to go to 1.4, or if you have a kit lens to 3.5. So let's set this to 1.4. Okay, we have other things to do. We need to still work on this image. So the next thing to set is the ISO, to have a bright image or a darker image. But when do we know when the image is okay? It's too bright or it's too dark. When do we know this? We need to activate first Zebra. This is the easiest way for a beginner to understand and to set the exposure correctly. So for this, go to menu number 2, submenu number 7, and here we have Zebra setting. Click on it, Zebra display, turn this on, and Zebra level, set this to 70. Now on your screen you will see some lines. Don't worry, those lines are just on the camera screen. You're not gonna see those lines on your footage. Don't worry. Some creators are like, oh, I don't need those lines. These lines are annoying. I don't want them. These lines are important. It's an important tool, and these lines will help you to have a proper exposure. Now we have Zebra at 70. That means when you see on your screen those lines, that part of the image is exposed at 70%. Our skin most of the time should be exposed at 70. So we want to set our exposure to have our skin exposed to 70, and we want to expose higher or lower until we have those lines on our face, on our skin. And this is how we know when the exposure is good or bad. To set the ISO, press right on the wheel that you will find on the back of your camera and turn the wheel left or right to increase or decrease the value. But don't go too far with the ISO. When the ISO is higher, the image will be brighter, but also you will have more noise in the image. So this is why I prefer to have the ISO value as low as possible, at 100, 160, 320, but not more than, I don't know, let's say 6400, not more than this. Try to add more light. For the moment, keep your ISO at 100. And right now this image is coming straight out of my Sony ZV E10 using the settings that I just told you about, and clearly the image is too dark, it's underexposed. How do I know that? One, I can look at the screen and I see that everything is too dark. But second, these lines that I just told you about are not on my face, are here around this light bulb. So we need to expose in a proper way, and when we will have a good exposure, those lines should be on my face. How to do that? First, keep the ISO at 100 and try to add more lights in your room, more physical lights. I don't know, shoot in front of a window or buy a professional LED video light or something. Try to add more light in your room until you will have a proper exposure. But if you can't find more lights, if you don't have more lights, if you can't buy more lights, start to increase the ISO step by step. I will do this right now until those lines will be on my face. So, ISO 125, still not good. 160, still not good. 200, 250, 320. I see those lines on my face, on my skin. So right now, I know that I have a good exposure. See, those lines are not perfectly equal on my face. Here I have a shadow, here I have a shadow, but these parts here are exposed at 70, which is perfect. And also you will see those lines here or here on the screen or here in this corner. That means that those areas are also exposed at 70, which is okay. Our face is important to be exposed at 70. Doesn't matter that something else in the room is also exposed at 70. But we still have a few steps to do. Wait, another important thing is to set the white balance correctly. If you know exactly what color temperature your lights are, you can set it manually, but most of the time we don't know what color temperature our lights are. But you can solve it using a white piece of paper. Press again this FN button and go to white balance. Here, go to custom one and press right on the wheel. And after that, OK on set. Hold the paper in front of the camera like this, and with the other hand, press again OK on the wheel. And the camera right now will set the white balance correctly according to your lights. And the next thing, we need to set the autofocus correctly. Press again the menu button, go into menu number 1 and submenu number 4. Here you will have focus mode, set this to continuous AF, focus area wide, and on face eye AF set, turn on face eye priority in AF, and subject detection human. And you can turn on also face eye frame display. And right now when you shoot, you will see on the screen this little square following your eye. This is awesome. Wait a little bit, I know we still have things to do. Wait, maybe the most important step besides these settings is to have and to use a good light. The best light in the world is the natural light. If you can use a natural light, use natural light. If you can't, buy a professional light. Try to use good lights and professional lights, a diffuse light. This is so important. Try to use diffuse light. Use a softbox, use a diffuse fabric. If you can't, just bounce the light into a wall and try to have a diffuse light and a good light. This is so important for a good image. You can make a lot of settings. If you don't have a good light, it will look bad, okay? If you have a harsh light, you will have a lot of shadows and everything will look bad. Trust me, it will look bad. And the exposure is not an exact science. Like I told you, the sweet spot for skin is somewhere around 70, but a lot of creators prefer to be a little bit underexposed, like at 60 or 50, and that's okay. If you want that moody vibe, that cinematic moody vibe, you can do it. It's not an exact science. Just stay close to the sweet spot, okay? Like 60, 50, don't go more than 70. I mean, you don't want to burn a lot of the image like I have right now with this bulb, okay? This is too bright. I put this here intentionally because I wanted you to see the zebras here, okay? For my taste right now, I will go maybe a little bit lower like this or like this with the exposure, okay? I will go a little bit lower for my taste. So it's not an exact science. Don't become just, oh, it need to be at 70. It can be at 60, at 50, it's okay. And I'm pretty sure that you will ask me right now, Gabriel, if I do all these settings right now and I shoot today a talking head video like this one, if I will shoot tomorrow, I need to do all these settings again? If you shoot in the same place with the same light, everything is the same, keep those settings. But if you shoot tomorrow in another room, in another space, or if you move the camera just a little bit, you need to check your exposure again. You will keep, of course, the frame rate, the shutter speed, the f number, but you may need to have a different ISO value. Maybe the light is different and you need to increase or decrease the ISO, or you are in another room and your light is different and you need to check the white balance again. Of course, in time you can learn a little bit how to improve your image at the editing part and learn how to color correct and color grade your footage and make it better at the editing part. This is another important step, but you will learn all these things step by step. First, you need to choose a proper setup for talking head videos. You need to learn how to make the settings like you did in this video. You need to learn how to light up your scene for a talking head video. You need to learn how to choose your lights. You need to learn how to record the sound. This is super important. How to choose the microphone, how to set the levels, and how to record the sound properly for a talking head video. And I will come back on this channel with this kind of videos on this topic. And if you like this video and if you find it useful, don't forget to press now the like button and the subscribe button, because I will come back with many useful videos like this one. Right now on this channel you can find other videos for talking head creators. I will put a big video right now on the screen. See you soon.